Hey friends, come along with me to the beach in Cabo as I paint and chat with Raj Chaudhuri. Raj is an award-winning Colorado oil painter. He's represented by galleries in Denver and Houston. He's a sought-after instructor and a kind and outgoing human, and I'm so honored to call him my friend. Listen in as we have a conversation about art and life.
Wow, look at that wave. Whew.
It's incredible.
Oh, we're so lucky.
I have to start something, I suppose. Just staring at a blank piece of paper.
Well, I started this yesterday, so you're at a bit of a disadvantage.
Well, I'm here in Cabo with my friend Raj Chaudhuri.
Hi.
So awkward.
Put on your Texas accent, it'll be fine.
Well, I'm here in Cabo with my friend Raj. We like to paint.
Pretty pictures.
Pretty pictures.
Pretty pictures.
Raj, I don't think I even know how you started getting into painting.
Oh goodness, yeah.
Did you always like to draw as a kid, or did you?
Growing up in India, I loved to draw cowboys and Indians.
Cowboys and Indians.
I was fascinated by them. And then getting older, looking at this is beyond your time. I think your older viewers are gonna know, but I just look at the Time magazine. The Marlboro Man ads.
Oh yeah. No, I remember those.
Yeah.
I'm not that young.
Oh. Copying those and those.
So you would draw them, like in
Draw
pencil?
them, paint them. I had access to poster. I don't know if you remember the poster watercolors. Gouache, basically.
Gouache, yeah.
Yeah.
Poster color.
Yeah, poster color. And I loved painting American Indian copy paintings from famous artists. That's kind of how I started. But
Oh, I didn't know that. That's really cool.
and then moving to Denver, getting access to the league, the Art Students League was huge too. So
And
slowly
so
painting.
you're still painting a lot of horses.
Yeah, finally gotten back to painting Western stuff, which it blows my mind because I have friends now with ranches all over Colorado, and you're actually meeting real life cowboys.
That is so neat.
Cowgirls, and showing at Western shows like the course show, which is super fun.
Which you won the whole thing.
I did,
Congrats,
yeah,
by the
thank
way.
you, thank you.
Amazing accomplishment to win the
Appreciate that
course
very
show.
much. Thank you. You're so kind to have me.
So awesome. But you had a job for a while.
Yeah,
A
I
long
did. I
time.
was in software for a long time because I had to make money and hadn't developed my... Frankly, I didn't know you could make a career as an artist. I just didn't know
that not
what
a thing in
path...
India?
No, and I didn't know what that path would look like. Met an artist called Mark Daly, and then Kwang Ho, and then Dan Sprick, who's of course here with us painting, which I know you're going to get to a little later. And so it's just this journey, and the more I was able to surround myself with it, it was huge. But yeah, I was in software for 20 years, traveling consultant.
20 years.
And I wanted to do, and I was fairly good at it. And every chance I got to do any kind of creative work, I basically would do any kind of front-end design work. The web was just starting when I was getting into computers, and that was very exciting.
You were at the very front end of the computer.
There was a browser called
Revolution.
Netscape.
I
That was the
remember
original one. And Netscape, I think, became Mozilla Firefox.
Oh
I
yeah.
think. And then there was another one. I can't remember the name of that, but it was super fun.
So you did enjoy that job.
I would still do it if I didn't want to become a painter. So I did that part-time for a long time. So I was doing full-time consultant and taking classes at the league and painting the model there, the live figure model. And then made the transition to part-time, which was great because I was making good money doing software work too and trying to paint, but it was kind of hard. It was underestimatedly hard from with your brain to occupy two very different spheres. There's patterns in both, but the technology is very different. We're working with a very old technology, and the technology with software, it's still abstractions. They're both abstractions, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So there's lots of patterns. You're trying to find repeating patterns in software as well.
I never thought about that. That's
Yeah, so it's technical as well,
true.
but the technology is different, of course. But
It's all problem solving,
it's
right?
problem solving and taking. The big thing with technology is you're trying to solve business problems or repetitive tasks, or try to find patterns in data and so on and so forth. And with art, it's using our visual tools to make a painting, right? Shape, value, line, color, texture, edges, all that. But, and also what you want to paint, though, I think that's kind of really important. That's the other aspect of it. It's like what we're doing here is we love painting. None of us are seascape painters, right?
No.
It's
Well,
a butt-kicking
except for Dan.
talent, right? Yeah.
I think he qualifies.
But he doesn't sell them though either, right? He just
That's true.
does,
Yeah, it's not like his main
no.
bread and butter.
So that's kind of fun. But so we're here because we're passionate about it and we're just enjoying the process.
So what was your first memory surrounding art or involving art?
One of the first ones was when they first showed Andrew Wyatt's Helga series. And they had a show in New Orleans. And I didn't really know who Andrew Wyatt was back then because I wasn't, a painter. And he's kind of a painter's painter, although very mainstream. But there was a show of his Helga work at the New Orleans Art Museum, and it was in Mississippi. My wife was in medical school then, so we went there, and I saw the show, and it just kind of blew my mind.
Oh.
So good. It was so honest and so. It's just breathtaking to see those paintings in person. I didn't even know what I was looking at back then because I was just looking at it purely from somebody who liked art but didn't know much about it.
So do you feel like that's a good sign that it's a great painting if it is something that can deeply affect a viewer even if they don't understand anything about art?
I think it's critical. I think the expectation that you need to have a bunch of abstract learning behind you and become like a painter and understand all these concepts and then try to go understand art, there's something fake about it.
Yeah.
Right? We as artists need to understand it abstractly and technically because we're trying to make paintings. But for somebody who's walking up to a painting, it just needs to respond to them at an emotional level, purely from love, from beauty,
love, I
from
love that.
absolutely, right? And then the technical aspects of it, I mean, if you think of a good composition or a good piece of music, you don't need to learn how to play the music to relate to it.
That's true.
Right? So similarly
Yeah.
with art, if it's done properly, they're going to relate to it. Or if it's played badly, they're going to know it's played badly, right?
Yeah.
But they don't need to know what chords being misplayed.
That's so true.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely does.
Yeah, and I think a lot. Yeah. And
So
if
Andrew
it doesn't,
Wyatt.
then I think it's a case of Emperor's New Clothes to a great extent.
So he did a lot of watercolors.
He did amazing. He was an amazing watercolorist. Amazing.
And
He
you
did a
started
lot
with
of,
poster color. But how
yeah.
did you end up switching to oil or start discovering oil painting?
That was through a painter called Mark Daly, who's one
Oh.
of my first art teachers. He's doesn't paint much anymore, but he was a colorist supreme. He's good friends with Dan and Kwang. He used to teach at the league.
Oh, okay.
He had a 2-3 month class where we'd have a model for Mondays and Thursdays. He would come in Mondays just for a minute, help set up everything, and then leave. And then Tuesday he would come, make you cry.
This was the Art Students League of Denver.
Yes.
So you took classes there.
Yep. And I teach there now, but yeah.
It's so fun. You came
Yeah, a
full,
lot of
full
us
circle.
do. Yeah. Jan teaches there. Dan, I met Dan there too, actually. Yeah.
Dan Frick.
Yeah. How did you get started in art?
Oh, well, I mean, I was always interested in art. As a little kid, I was just drawing constantly. I think that's how most of us start, right? We just can't help but draw. It's kind of this innate desire that is just there from the very beginning.
I agree. That's the.
Yeah.
And a lot of people can't do anything with it for most of their lives with careers.
Or they're
So-
discouraged from doing anything.
Right.
with
I
it.
was actually. I was. So keep going. So how did you drew, and then what happened?
So I drew, and I don't know. obviously having a twin sister who was also interested in drawing, we just pushed each other all the time, and we're constantly trying to copy photographs in magazines and books. We were obsessed with drawing horses.
Really?
It's still to this day the only thing I can really draw from memory, anatomically correct pretty well.
I don't know if I could do that.
Because I studied so many books and magazines as a kid. Well, I bet you could if you were drawing cowboys and horses. You're still drawing them all the time now. So.
Yeah, I think that's improved a bit. Yeah.
But yeah, it's just kind of always been there. But again, it's one of those things that you don't really realize you can get a career in it,
Right.
or unless you become a fine art painter in a gallery, or major in it in college, or go to art school. So I never really took it seriously until probably about 8 years ago, 7 or 8 years ago.
Wow. That's way cool. And now you're going to Morocco to do a workshop?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
But
Congrats on that.
thank you. So when did you start teaching art? Would you say that it informs your own painting too?
Yes, very much. Probably 10 years ago, 12 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, 10, 12 years ago. I don't think it's been 15, but I used to teach it with software. I did a lot of business workshops for...
So you had a background in teaching a little bit already.
Yes, I did.
That's
I
really
ran a
helpful.
help desk when my wife was in medical school. I ran a help desk, so that involved a lot of teaching. And then when I was in software, I did a lot of these workshops for object-oriented programming, to basically take a big problem and solve it into smaller problems and identify actors and whatnot, all the stuff that's software related.
Yeah.
But so the teaching part came very naturally, and I found that when I started teaching, I was a natural teacher. I felt like I could communicate very clearly with students in a vocabulary that they understood, met them where they were. That's one of the things I learned from
That
Juan.
is a hard thing to do sometimes.
To look at an artist and then see where they are and try to help them along, and not make them paint like you per se, but just find their journey.
Right.
Yeah, so I found that very rewarding and very challenging too. And it really made me figure out what I wanted to paint and question that. So that was a huge thing. I think a big development for my career was to teach.
I love that. Did you struggle at the beginning with the vocabulary, or do you feel like you had enough of it just from having taken enough art classes?
I think you figure out what's effective to teach as you teach more. There's definitely some learning there, but the vocabulary came as a painter, right? So
Yeah. I struggled
learned
with that at first. I didn't really have a vocabulary.
Well, I'd taken the advantage of studying with Kwang Ho, and he's to me, one of the greatest art teachers, because he has such a beautiful, simple way of looking at a very complex problem. And that was kind of... It's all there. A lot of it, I mean, we're not reinventing a lot of these things. Because like I said, the technology is old. Right? It's been... Watercolor's been around for a long time. But how you say it is really important.
I agree. Did you ever explore like other styles, or I don't know, go through a phase where you were just trying a bunch of different things?
I think in art, one of the ways to do it is to go after painters that you really like, their work that you really like, especially if they're, master painters. And they're long gone. I think copying their work verbatim is a spectacular thing to do. Really, like a master copy of some sort is a spectacular thing to do, and I'm sure you've done that.
A few times, not enough, not as much as I should probably.
And in a genre that appeals to you, so art's all about finding things you love. And I think the style thing is it's like your handwriting, it comes, and you have to learn it, but it's inside you, and I believe people can, and nowadays people don't write anymore. but if you, with handwriting, you could tell a lot about somebody's personality with the way they wrote.
That's so interesting.
So with art, I think would encourage everybody to go look for painters that they like and study them, study the composition. If there's techniques there that are good, blatantly copy as much as you can. But then you have, it's in the doing. It's not in just the intellectual understanding of what's going on with art. And as you do it, you make parts of those things part of your process, part of your vocabulary, right? As a painter, your repertoire.
That's a great way to advise someone who's, I get that question all the time, how do you find your own style? And I think that's a really amazing answer.
Don't force it.
Look for other artists that you really
Absolutely.
enjoy.
And then incorporate parts of their...
Incorporate.
Absolutely. That's how we're getting better too, right? Finding painters that we like and what's making sense. And it's not just copying the subject matter, it's how they're painting it. The subject matter should be whatever's personal to you as a painter, correct?
And there are artists like Kwang who would say that almost the subject matter doesn't matter.
Right.
But I think for most beginners, for me even, like, I think the subject matter does matter.
And even for Kwang, I know he says it, I think his point is more that it's how you paint it and not what you paint. And that's how you can help other artists get better based on how they're painting, not what they're painting.
Yeah.
But to you, as a painter, it should matter a huge amount. Because your choices define how people view you as an artist.
Yeah.
And they want to be part of that process.
Do you think too that if you are trying to do subject matter that you're not necessarily passionate about, but you're doing it because your favorite artist does it, it might not be the best painting?
It won't be, and you might get a few paintings that are good, but if you're not passionate about what you're painting, I think, and it doesn't matter if you're a recreational hobbyist or you're a full-time painter, you need to really give subject matter a good thought. And I'm not saying you paint just, if you paint one thing, you're going to get better faster. There's no doubt about that, because doing a series of something really is a smart way to explore, whether it's animals or flowers or figure or landscape or whatever. It's like we're spending this week here.
Yeah, studying the seascape.
Yeah, studying the seascape. And if we did this for a few years in a row, we'd get a little better. Whether
I
you
would
like
hope
it or
so.
not. Right. So,
That's the goal.
yeah.
So what are your favorite things to paint, and how did you, I don't know, develop that propensity towards them?
I wish I had less things to paint.
So many favorites?
I am like this, I have so much energy too, so I'm like, I want to do everything.
You have an enviable energy about you.
Oh my God.
It's fantastic.
My wife doesn't think so. So my daughter does, because she's a lot like me. And
What's
so
her nickname? The Energizer Bunny?
Totally.
Is that what she calls you?
Totally. So, no, I think painting things that you're surrounded by, that are around you. You don't have to. Now, I paint Indian scenes. I go to India and paint, and that's, quote unquote, an exotic thing to do. But that doesn't mean that's the only thing that you want to paint. I love doing that because I've grown up there. I understand it. So things that are around you, whatever that is, would be a good starting point. And if you really want to, so maybe answering it differently is, I paint everything. I paint landscapes, I paint figures, I paint horses, I paint cowboys, I paint, seascapes, still lifes, whatever.
Just a painter. You're not a portrait painter. You're not a landscape painter.
No.
You are a painter.
But whatever you do, you should do many of.
That's
right?
good advice.
Otherwise, you don't want to jump from one to the other. You're not going to be able to get past the technical. How do you make a nose look like a nose, or how do you make a horse look like a horse? It's going to take more than one horse.
Yes,
Right?
indeed. From many angles and many colors, many poses.
Right. And the other thing is, if you, so that's one answer to that.
It's hard to talk and paint at the same time.
No. It's actually good because it's distracting me from overthinking everything.
Okay.
We're probably driving Jen batty out here, so we'll be driving you batty. I'm sorry. Yeah. If you like to travel, you've got some ability to try to journal or even just do little sketches.
Yeah.
It's a spectacular way of having more meaningful checked into the presence, more long-term, rather than taking a photograph of it and moving on, taking a photo and moving on.
I couldn't agree more.
So I think
Love
that's another point that
Yeah.
when I travel, I paint a lot, and it's never something I may not even sell any of those things.
Right.
I just love.
But there's the
Love
sign of the true artist. You just can't help but paint
Yeah,
wherever you
yeah.
go, right?
Yeah.
So good. So what are some paintings or series of paintings, since you paint more than one, right? That you've done that you're most proud of?
Several. I love my series of, and this is not a bad word. The Rajasthani gypsies. That's what they're called. They're from there, and they're ethnic indigenous people in Rajasthan. I've painted them many different ways, and it's very meaningful to me. And I had the chance very recently to paint them in person, and they're a fiery bunch.
I would love to meet them.
They'll start arguing with one another, and oh my goodness,
That sounds so
heckle you while you're painting, and
Heckle you.
I kid you not. I'm not making this up.
What were they telling you about your art?
They'll push you. They'll ask for money. They'll say this is not very good, and I'm not making this stuff up.
That's rough.
It's hilarious.
But you love it.
Yeah, so that's been fun. Painting horses and cowboys has been amazing. Doing seascapes I want to get good at this.
Oh, I do too. This is
Really
kicking my butt.
Yeah.
So what are you finding the most challenging about painting seascapes so far?
Doesn't hold still.
It doesn't hold still.
You have to understand what it's doing. You can't copy it. You have to understand how it's being broken down. Because there's transparent shapes and there's opaque shapes. The form's opaque, the water's transparent. So they react differently with the light. And the sun keeps moving.
The sun keeps me too. And then how it hits the rocks is almost different every time also.
Every time, yeah.
There's just...
This journeying stuff is so beautiful.
so beautiful.
So beautiful.
So complex.
Oh,
I'm completely out of my element right now.
me too.
What a
But
struggle.
what's interesting is if you slow down and try and paint it instead of trying to match the fury of the water, you'll have better success.
I think I'm gonna make it look calm though.
No.
Lose all that fiery tossing and turning.
Yeah.
That's my goal this week, is to try to make a painting that looks just tumultuous.
I agree.
Is that what you
Like
want to
the
do
tempest. Yeah, I know. What's unusual about this beach is that the wave is only at the end.
too? Yeah.
It's a big one. It crashes right at the end. which
Crashes
is
right there.
So bizarre. There's not a bunch of big breakers.
Right.
Whitecaps coming through.
Like when we were in Costa Rica in February, you just could see them coming
Whitecap,
in one
right,
after
right,
the
right.
other, and all the surfers could just watch them and ride in, and
Right.
you would never want to surf.
No, you'll break your neck.
You would die. So, Christy has been super supportive of your art career.
Very.
How has she been a part of your art journey?
She's my absolute rock in this whole process. She's been encouraging me from day one, and one of the things that she still kind of upsets the wrong word, which is like, she said, just go for it right from the beginning. And I think I wish I'd kind of done that, but it took a little longer.
So you had to
Doing
convince
part-time.
yourself before.
Yes.
She didn't have to be the one who convinced you, huh?
No.
You had to convince yourself.
Because my identity was wrapped around trying to make money and supportive. That's what I brought up with that identity. And it's a very hard identity to choose, but there's so much value in getting better. It's a big thing, and just the joy it gives you. So Christy's been hugely supportive.
And then you had Bela. She came along.
Yep, that's been the joy of our life.
How would you say your art changed when she
Oh, it's a great
showed up?
question. Going back to things that you love and things that you're surrounded by, and when you have a child, it consumes your life. And painting the child, or the mother and child relationship, painting, watching a child do things as a little teeny bopper, a 10-year-old. Several of the awards I've received are on paintings that I've done of her.
Oh,
When
yeah.
you're at the Grand Canyon, trying to picture her with this wall of.
That's one of my favorite paintings you've
and
done.
those would never have come if I hadn't experienced those experiences.
Right.
Right? So having a child is real. It was.
And I think viewers of art can tell when there's some genuine heart and soul in that painting.
Yes.
If it's something that you're just trying to paint
Absolutely,
to
yes.
sell a painting or whatever.
Yes. Which is the absolute wrong reason to paint.
Yeah, I think people have a good BS detector on that.
Yes. And they have it inherently. They're not trying to. People are smart,
Yeah.
and they respond to genuineness.
Yes. Authenticity.
Yeah. So.
Is that something you've ever struggled with, is authenticity, or feeling like you're...
No.
Well, you are lucky then.
Not really.
One of the
but-
rare ones.
But I do struggle with subject matter. I do struggle with that because it's one thing to just paint for yourself and and keep that work.
Yeah.
It's another thing to paint and then have collectors start to collect that work. It has to resonate with them too.
So you do have to think about your collectors.
Well, it doesn't drive my choices, but it does affect them. I mean, I'd be lying to you if I didn't think about, well, is this something that is marketable or not?
Yeah.
And how does it look on you as an artist with what work you're putting out there? And what does it say? Does it represent you as a human being, as your values, your ideas, and everything else? So I think all these choices kind of work into it. So
do you curate your work quite a bit as far as what's put out there into the world?
you have to, and I've learned that if you don't, you don't want to have bad work there that you know is not 100% representative of your ability as a painter. You don't want it. Just because somebody's going to buy it, it's not reason enough to have it there. Right? You want it to be your best stuff. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it totally does. I've been one to fall victim to the tendency to want to just, because I'm on social media so much and on YouTube, I have to get content out there.
Right.
And sometimes I've had to post videos or paintings that I was not proud of. And sometimes I wonder if that's something I need to think about more.
You do, because it's going to be there long after you don't want it to be there.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So you've got to be proud of it completely. And I understand time constraints. It's like when you think about somebody like Norman Rockwell, and he's producing those covers one after the other. I couldn't imagine the pressure they're going under.
Oh, I couldn't either, having those kind of deadlines.
Oof. But it's a good question. I think, and there's too many pressures. Even as a full-time painter, you've got way too many deadlines. Way too many deadlines, especially if you're painting for a show, or painting for a competition, or painting for a client.
So do you work well under deadlines?
I actually do.
Hey, congratulations. You're not a procrastinator.
I am, so I work better under deadlines. So
I do too, actually. I really like deadlines for that reason.
I do too.
They're very motivating.
Yeah. And it feels like, and then if you're considering this as a career in some fashion.
What are some questions you'd like me to ask?
Well, you've asked some amazing questions.
Oh,
I hope I've been able to
yes, very
give
good
you
answers.
some content.
So good.
I don't know. What do your viewers typically ask you? What do they want from you?
Let's see. I think viewers love to hear about struggle. So, what are some times that you've had some struggle in your artwork, and what are some things that you're still working to achieve?
Well, art is hard. And you'll hear this if you ever hear an art teacher, and no offense to anybody who says this, but in my opinion, if they tell you, oh, this is easy, I would go running away from that, because
Leave
it's
that
not.
teacher.
Okay, leave that. And it's not easy. It's so rewarding because it's very elusive. It's very hard to do. It's very and as you paint more, it still stays very hard, if not harder. But your work gets better, number one, because your goals change, right?
Yeah.
Right? And you start to. One of the hardest things is to try to stop copying what you're seeing. We can't copy this; it's moving too fast, whether you like it or not.
So true.
And start to get checked into what your painting is doing and responding to that. But that takes a huge level of skill.
How long would you say it took you to start thinking that way, to be able to move away from,
Long time.
that beginner stage of just
Yeah.
copying whatever you're
Yeah.
seeing? And
Well, part of it's changing your thinking, right? It's not after 10,000 hours or whatever the number is, you start becoming your technical skills are probably pretty good by then, right? You can render a scale, or you can paint whatever, right? You can play an instrument. But if you, in my opinion, when you start asking the right questions about, what is the painting about? Am I describing the light correctly? Is it, what's the foam kind of working out here? Well, just technical questions, but also what is the painting doing? Why is it doing it? What do you want it to do? What do you want people to see when the painting? What are the, rather than, do I have this exactly correct from the photograph? Because the photograph itself is lying to you all the time. There are algorithms on it to make the blues bluer, to make the edges too sharp. There's all kinds of nonsense going on with the photograph that it's already somebody's reality. It's not what you see.
so how do you go into a painting with an intention of what you want to achieve, or do you go into a painting with some clear idea of what it's about? And are the questions that you ask related to that goal?
All very, very big. So, you're never going to know where the painting's going to end up. You might have an idea, and it's good to have. So I think if you're checked into the painting will lead you through the painting to where it needs to go, if that makes sense. Especially with oil, there's so much build-up that you can do on it.
Yeah, not so much with watercolor.
Right, but even with watercolor, you might think, really, it's really about that beautiful light going across this painting, right? And it turns out that, the light was just the starting point, and it becomes so much more about maybe the blues through the painting, or the grays through the painting, or something
That's
different.
true. It can
right?
evolve a little bit.
It can
yeah.
evolve. So being checked into that is really important. And the other way to kind of answer that question is, the sooner you have an art, you have structure, you have your foundation, you have your design, asking, is the painting about the rock, or is it about the water? Is it about the foam, or is it about the whole water? What's the whole painting about? And the minute you have that in place, and the big value to the two shapes, it's very technical, I hope this helps, but like your large light shape and then the shadow shape, just what those two shapes are going to do with one another. If you have that kind of in place, because then those your further choices start being made based on accentuating that first decision that you can make.
Yeah. So you emphasize the shapes,
The design.
the design.
The design of the painting.
based on lights and darks
Yeah.
and their relationship with
Yep.
each other.
Yep.
So what is like?
And something just very quickly is like,
Yeah.
for example, if I do a figure out here, and the figure is really small and the seascape's really big, is the painting about the figure? Or is it about the seascape? Right. So that needs to be clear in your head as an artist.
That's
or if
a really
I
good
zoom
point.
right into the figure and the figure's covering most of the canvas, and there's a seascape behind it, what's the painting about?
What is it about?
That is and what's your main shape in the painting? Is it the light shape, the shadow shape? Is it a local tone painting? What's the middle value or the high? What is that about? I think that's
Oh, that's a good question. So if there was a figure out here, how would you handle that right now?
it would put it in, but it would be a secondary
It
thing.
would be secondary,
Yes,
okay.
or a tertiary thing, right? Right. So is it about the rock or the foam? Can't compete with one another.
So you have to figure out how to integrate that so it
You
creates a
have to
pleasing design.
choose first. You have to choose first, and then your choices get affected by that. Is this too
Yeah.
technical? Is this
No,
making any
this
sense?
I think it
My-
fully supports the idea that painting is hard.
It's hard, but there's truisms. There's that shape, value, colors. This
Yeah.
whole truism that I've been taught and I totally buy it. Design, then the value relationship, and then color. And so it's turning out so beautifully.
Thank you.
It is, yeah.
Just a couple blobby rocks right now.
Love it. So what was the second thing you were asking me, Ines?
Oh, so I was going to ask you, what are some of the most common struggles that you see with your beginning students?
Right. Lots. I mean, firstly, it's drawing.
Drawing.
Drawing's a big thing. That's like the holy grail. The better you draw, your sister draws so spectacularly well, so do you. And the better your drawing is, your ability to perform. That's number one, right? Second thing is like lots of, silly stuff, like not putting enough paint on your palette and mixing it. Another big thing and a very difficult thing is to separate value from color. So
That is really difficult.
So you have to see the value of different colors, but they're the same darkness, and that's what holds shapes together.
Oh, so
So
hard.
that's a big thing. That's kind of where I spend a lot of my time, and then not just blindly copying, being lazy about the reference. Oh, the reference has got everything. Just kind of copying that and then expecting a really good painting when you haven't. It's a complex thing. You got to think about it. You got to actively figure it out rather than just expecting the digital camera to give you everything.
I've seen that a lot with my own students too, is just the copying of the photo, even if it's, so I have a lot of students who do like pet portraits.
Sure.
And,
Great thing to do.
Great thing, yeah. But let's face it, a lot of these photos are just iPhone photos. You've got some distortion of the lens. You've got some really terrible lighting, perhaps indoor lighting. So lots of things that could be fixed in your painting if you know how to do it, but a beginner struggles with that, I think.
Very, very, very well said. I do too, and I think starting with poor reference is it's going to be Achilles' heel.
It's going to make it much more difficult.
It's not going to work. If you know what you're doing, it'll work, right? If you've painted bunches of animals and then that happens, it's going to work beautifully because you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But if you look at a photograph, and the other thing is, I'm a big proponent of not painting from one photograph.
Oh, yeah.
It's a big thing for me.
That's
so
a good point.
I will have 3-4 photographs open.
Oh, here comes the water.
Here comes the water.
I didn't quite get to us.
Jen's new slippers are gonna go. So I love doing this thing called thumbnails. So I'll do a simple design for a complex painting, and I can look at 3-4 designs, and so starting off with a poor design is another real big pitfall.
Do you do your thumbnails in oil?
No, black and white pencil.
Okay.
Just and try to objectify them, de-objectify them, abstract them as much as I can before. So I'm just seeing just the pure simplified shapes. You can't even tell what it's a painting of.
That's so good, and I think that's something anybody in any medium can do.
Any medium, it's regardless of what. So just it'll help answer a lot of the questions for you as to what the painting's about. Is it about this building or the water in front of the building or the boat?
Yes.
And how do you want the pet portrait to look like? So that's like the simplest thing to. And then looking at many like the different exposures for different angles. Maybe in one photograph the paw is a little bit better, in one photograph the tail's in the right place, in one photo the ear's in the right place. So
you can take pieces of different photos and stitch them together.
Yes.
As the artist, you get to do that.
Yes. Yes. And change it a bit. Well, the nose is really too big. I'm going to make the nose a little smaller. That's okay. Right?
Yeah.
Or if it's a caricature, make it really big.
Isn't that funny how it's like you need to hear someone else give you permission to do those things?
We were talking about it earlier today with Dan, you know.
Yeah.
Like he will give you permission to do
change.
it right, but why are we changing it? Is it because we like it or don't like it, or is it making a better painting?
So what do you do if you don't necessarily know?
Then just copy it just the way it
change?
is first. Copy it just the way it is first, but
Right,
and
yeah.
then see what. That's why the sketches help, and you'll know intuitively, because you've got your intellectual mind and then you've got your intuition. Your intuition will always be correct if you can listen to it. It's a quiet voice, and you have to listen to it. Like I'm responding to my painting. I had these two shapes equal earlier on, as my intuition said to me, that's not working, so I changed it, and it makes more sense. So and that takes time. That's where your skill comes in, your sense of beauty, your sense of design, what you like, what you don't like. That all comes with time.
Some juicy white brush strokes there.
Yeah. And we're losing a light.
I know, it's so different. I'm already.
We're gonna finish it. It's good. I love the rock. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Wonder if I should just throw some birds on there and add some shadow to the wave and call it good.
Do it.
I don't know if I can do much with this foreground splash
No,
at
it's
this
gone.
point.
It's totally gone.
It's all different.
Yeah. You know what Dan was saying about, this is how intelligent he is, about the water. The foam is opaque, and without the light it's a lot darker, but the water is transparent. It's pretty much the same value. The colors have changed, but the water itself, the light blue water and all the sky base, it's still the same. The light greens, wherever it's transparent, it's still the same.
No kidding, you're
Isn't that
so
wild?
right about that. Yeah. I heard him saying that and I didn't quite understand, but now
Does that
makes
make sense?
sense. Yeah.
All the opaque stuff is definitely changed, but the stuff that's transparent is, you can still go after that. I hope I've given you stuff that you can use.
So good. Yeah, that was a fun conversation.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for
Thanks so
having me.
much
My
for
goodness.
chatting with me.
Enjoyed that so much. Thank you for. I can't wait to see it.
Good.
Look at the wave.
Whoa.
Woo! Wow. The spray on top of the wave.
Dang, it's so good.